Hey folks, welcome back, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Danae, and today we are going to be making some Mullein tincture. I have been working with Mullein for almost 5 years now, and I found a number of different uses for it beyond what Mullein is popular for, so I wanted to share a little bit of that today, some of the different ways that I like to prepare Mullein and use it in my medicine making, and of course the different ailments that Mullein is useful for. It's a very versatile herb. So this is going to be a bit more of a casual video. If you're interested in seeing the science-backed medicinal benefits of Mullein, feel free to watch the video I have linked in the description. It goes much more in depth, and we'll also have links to those articles. I'll also include links to those articles in this video description as well. But I just figured I'm going to make some tincture today. We just ran out of last year's Mullein tincture because we use a lot of it. We had a nice quart jar full, and we're already through it. So I figured I would just take you along today in my medicine making and talk about the different ways that I use it, and maybe you'll find that helpful. One thing I'm doing different this year, if you've watched any of my tincture making videos, I usually use vodka. This year I will be using rum, and this is an 80 proof rum. Normally I work with 90 proof of any alcohol, whether it's vodka or in this case rum. And the reason for that, if you are working with fresh herbs, there's always going to be there's going to be a water content in fresh herbs versus your dry herbs. And the more water content in your herbs, the higher the likelihood that your tincture will spoil. It's still a pretty low likelihood for most herbs, but just to be on the safe side, generally if you're working with fresh herbs, you want to use 90 proof or higher. I'm not too worried about using fresh herbs with this Mullein here, but just make sure you do your research and make fresh tincture at your own risk. So these of course are fresh Mullein leaves. I just pulled them out from the garden yesterday. You can work with them fresh in a tincture, or you can work with them dry. Number of different ways you can dry it. I use my air fryer as a dehydrate setting on it. You can also just set this out in a cool, dark, dry place for up to 2 weeks, and most of the plant will be dry. You'll notice with Mullein it has a pretty thick rib right down the center here. So usually what you'll find is that the leafy flexible bit will dry first, and then this part will usually stay quite flexible unless you actually put it in an electric dehydrator. It's very hard to dry. So if you're going to dry it naturally, I would recommend cutting this into smaller pieces. It just increases the surface area and allows more water to come out of those leaves. Since I'm working with an 80 proof vodka, I think I'm going to separate the leaves from the rib, since that part has the highest water content, and that will make this safer. So yeah, Mullein is a wonderful plant. So the scientific name for the Mullein I work with is Verbascum thapsus, and there are quite a few varieties of Mullein. Mullein can also be grown for its flowering parts. The leaves and the flowers are medicinal, but some folks grow it as a decorative element for their garden. So you'll see some varieties of Mullein that have pink flowers, just various colors of flowers. Wild Mullein has yellow flowers and a pretty distinguished stalk. It grows in a rosette pattern the first year. It's a biennial plant, meaning that it will grow the first year, and then the second year it will go to seed. It will flower and produce its seeds, and then usually after that it dies off. It's quite an amazing plant. If you have ever seen Mullein on the side of a road or growing just naturally in somebody's garden, it really stands out. Mullein can get quite tall. The Mullein that grows around here I've seen get as tall as 10 feet, depending on the growing conditions. So it's quite amazing. I love the look of Mullein, and I always try to have some growing in my garden, and it's always fun to see how big it gets each year. So I've been working with Mullein for about 5 years, and it's one of the first medicinal plants that I worked with. Medicinal plants that I didn't already know about. You know, everybody knows about mint and thyme and sage, but this was the first plant I had worked with that I had never heard of before. It was a wild growing plant, so I had to learn how to identify it, and the results after using it for the first time were one of the things that got me into herbal medicine. It really showed me that there is something to using plants in medicine, and so I wanted to share a little bit about that story. So it was during the first year of the pandemic, and my husband and I both got COVID. Of course, we did have access to pharmaceutical medicines as well, but during that time, it was hard to get to the doctor's office and just stressful. So I decided to try making my husband a mullein tea out of fresh mullein leaves. It was, I want to say, January. I live in Maine, so there was already a lot of snow on the ground, but I was able to find some perfectly preserved mullein leaves right under the snow. That's one of the things I love about this plant, is it holds up pretty well even in the cold. So I was able to get some leaves and steep it into some tea. My husband was having some really painful sinus issues. Everything was inflamed in his nostrils and in his throat, just causing a lot of pain, a lot of dryness. And so I made him a mullein tea that evening, and he swore by it. It got his sinuses flowing again, soothed some of the inflammation, and pretty much from there on out, we've been using mullein for cold and flu. Now, just a reminder, I am not a doctor. I'm not a licensed medical professional of any kind. I'm just sharing what worked for me and my family so that maybe you can give it a try as well. Of course, if you are pregnant or nursing, you just want to check in with your doctor before you start using herbs medicinally or really in any capacity. So yeah, my husband getting sick was the first time we used mullein and really found that it worked for us. And so I started doing more research on the plant to learn about its medicinal properties. And I found that it actually has quite a few uses. Mullein has anti-cancer properties. It's highly anti-inflammatory. In fact, this is one of my favorite herbs for any type of inflammation, especially internal inflammation. So digestive issues, arthritis, just general malaise in the body that's caused by inflammation. This is a great herb to have on hand. And for inflammation purposes, I prefer it as a tincture. And for cold and flu, I prefer it as a leafy tea, though I do use it interchangeably. Okay, so we've separated the rib from the leaf matter. Okay, so I cannot find my culinary scissors for some reason, so I'm just going to use a knife to chop this up. We're going to chop this up as finely as we can. You could add the mullein leaf just like this into your jar. I just want to increase the surface area, because the greater the surface area, the more of those beneficial constituents you're going to be able to extract from the leaves into your menstruum, our menstruum in this case being our rum. So we will chop this up. So typically we use mullein leaf in our teas and tinctures, but you can also use the flower for antibacterial and antimicrobial benefits. The flowers are often used for making ear infection remedies. It is a antibiotic remedy. So usually you are combining mullein flower in some type of oil. I like to use olive oil. I use fresh mullein flower combined with, usually like to use Greek oregano, or any oregano will work. Those are both great antibiotic herbs. My husband actually did have an ear infection this year, and he claims that it worked just as well as the ear drops. He had been using doctor prescribed ear drops for about a week and didn't see too much of a difference. So when he ran out of that, he started using the mullein and Greek oregano oil as his ear drops. And he said they were comparable. So that was encouraging to know that what we can make at home can be sometimes as good as the stuff you can get from the doctor's office. It was actually really interesting because we were looking at what was in the ear drops. And I want to say it was salicylic acid, or maybe acetyl acid. Basically, it was like lemon juice with glycerin and maybe one other ingredient, but it really wasn't that complicated of a antibiotic. It honestly seemed like something that I could have easily made at home. So I don't know, I was just a little surprised to see that it was only by prescription. There could be something that I was missing there, but just an observation. All right, so here's our mullein. We have finally chopped it up, and we are going to add it to this jar. And tinctures really are just this simple. The biggest thing you just need to worry about with tinctures is making sure that your alcohol content is high enough. You need to make sure that it's always above 40% alcohol content. That's the best way to make sure that you never have your tincture spoil. So 40% equals 80 proof. So you just take the number of your proof and you cut it in half, and that will tell you the ratio of alcohol to water. So we could definitely add more to this jar, and I might do so later. So if you find that you have some herbs on hand and you're ready to start making your tinctures, you can always add more herbs to that same tincture later if there's room to do so. So as far as tea blends go, I like to add mullein to, of course, my cold and flu teas. I like to add it to wellness teas, so anything that has stinging nettle in it, I usually throw in a little bit of mullein. And it's really just for the anti-inflammatory properties and the anti-cancer properties. It's nice to know that this is something that is great for preventative care. I also like to add it to my anti-inflammatory tea. So I do have a specific blend for that. And if you're interested in learning how to make an anti-inflammatory tea, it's one of my favorite recipes, and it does so much for my household. We have to make giant batches of it because we go through it so quickly, because it really just helps with almost everything. So you can see how to make that anti-inflammatory tea in the video description, and it will also be linked above. All right, so here is our Mullein tincture. I'll probably change the lid that I keep on this to a sealable lid. Sometimes these are not great at being watertight, and I do need to shake this. So when you are making tinctures, you want to let it process for at least a month, though you can let it sit longer than that. I have some jars upstairs right now that have been processing for, over a year at this point, still with the plant matter in it, and they're perfectly safe. I just need to strain out the herbs before I start using them. But the longer you let it go, the stronger the tincture gets. But 1 month, if you need to set a timeline for that, is enough time to make a potent mullein tincture or any type of tincture. So what you'll want to do is shake this jar every day. And that's just going to make sure the herbs continue to process and release their beneficial constituents. You do want to make sure that you store this in a cool, dark environment, so away from the sun, just somewhere that you're going to remember it, so you remember to shake it. And yeah, I mean, tinctures are really quite simple. It's just adding your plant matter and adding a strong enough alcohol, whether that's vodka or rum, to make sure that it properly preserves. Make sure that you label your tinctures. It's very easy to forget what you've put in a jar, especially once it starts breaking down and you can't recognize the plant matter anymore. So just make sure you always label, you put the date that you tinctured it, and you also add the proof of the alcohol. That's helpful information as well. If you want to get really specific, you can also include the weight or the measure of plant matter you added to it. You can combine other herbs into a tincture. I usually like to just do pure tinctures of just one herb, and then if I want to combine them, I can do that later, because it's easier to keep track of what herbs are working for which ailments if they're not combined, and you can kind of isolate the effects. Okay, that's it for today's video. Thank you for coming along with me and making some tincture. I hope you found some of this information helpful, or just had a good time hanging out with me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.